Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Live Limitless Summit, where we are focusing all about having conscious, abundant, and radiant relationships. Relationships form an integral part of our lives, and they are also sacred territory. Growth arrives when we answer the call to move from beneath the surface and embrace what we are being invited into. So, to those of you who do not know me, I am Neepam Jain and I love transforming and facilitating people limiting belief, pain, and trauma so that they can be the best version of themselves. So, I'm very excited to have Lafaya Michelle with us today. Welcome to the show, Lafaya.
Hello, very excited to be here.
Yeah. So Lafaya, she has over 20 years of experience offering strategies to and healing relationship with families overwhelmed with socially, emotionally, or behaviorally challenged children. Lafaya has specialized in working with autism spectrum, ADHD, reactive attachment disorder, and other underdiagnosed, under overdiagnosed, socially misunderstood individuals and their families. And after years of prompts by parents and colleagues, she has come up with some of her philosophy, methodology that has assisted her in offering hope and positive changes in the life of struggling families with hypersensitive, socially misfit children in her book series, The Lafaya Way. So, Lafaya, I'm really this is a major topic where parents they feel if they have a child, I would call a special child, they feel lot of emotional burst out, emotional up and down, and sometimes they feel they are unheard. Nobody is there to understand them, listen to them, what they are going through. So really, I'm very excited to have you here so we can have a light on this topic even. So how did you start your journey? What prompted you to be serve such people and help the families having such kids? We would like to know a little bit from your life journey and then take it forward. Over to you, Lafaya.
Okay, now we attach it to my life journey. I have to say that it's been everything that's happened in my life has led up to this. Okay, because I myself was a hypersensitive kid. Okay, so I grew up in sort of have a traumatic past. So and here we call it intergenerational trauma type of issues there. And for me, I was very sensitive, and I knew this right away to what was happening with people internally as opposed to what they were trying to present on the outside. And so I had a very, very difficult time. And I was actually a very angry child because I
Okay.
didn't feel like I could trust anyone because people were always so incongruent with how they really felt on the inside and what they expressed on the outside. And so, for me, it caused many struggles, but these struggles led to my finding out that I actually love to work with kids with these particular struggles. And so,
Wow.
I mean, it was a long journey,
Yes,
but
I'm sure about it.
right, but it was like throughout my life, I would run into these counseling opportunities, and it was just like kind of life brought them to me. And then once I got to work with autism spectrum disorder, I knew right away that things that they had out there to teach me were not going to properly address the needs of these kids. This is why they were coming to our program, failing treatment multiple times, and all of that. And then all of a sudden, they would come to me and have actually a really nice story for you about the first child that I worked with. They would come to me, and all of a sudden, now they get results. And
Okay.
so at first, I could not have wrapped that up into a philosophy. Before I would call it a gift. I would call it just understanding them and all of these things. And after years and years of parents telling me you have to share what it is you do with other practitioners because they are not able to work with our children. We've been through multiple practitioners for 5, 10 years, right? And colleagues alike saying, okay, what is it that you're doing that's, causing them to be able to engage with you? And I'm like, nothing special. It's just common sense is what it felt like to me. And,
Or
and
maybe you
then
were gifted with that thing. You were born with that quality.
And then after some years, after about 15 years or so of hearing the same thing, then there was kind of a push by some others too, and they just started to call it the Lafaya method, and parents started to call it the Lafaya way. I just tried it the Lafaya way. I'm like, ooh, stop that. Because
Yes.
first, right, I don't want the credit, right? And but then I had to kind of own that there was something to it, and life kind of brought me to a place to where it was like, okay, now it's time for you to use your gift. And that's when I really sat down and tried to figure out how to take all of this gift that I had and share it, to put it into words for people to understand and be able to use.
Wow, that's amazing. So what is the process you go through, and how do you deal, and what are the difficulties you must have found, I mean, while working with the parents or the kids like this?
Okay, so now that leads to just this little story. I have a boy that in one of my books, my first book actually, I call him Blue Tunnel Boy. And this particular child, he was on the autism spectrum. He was nonverbal, and he did not engage with anyone. He did not even answer to his mom calling him. And so I had no clue how to work with this person, how to work with this kid. I was at a loss at first. I was like, oh my goodness, he doesn't want me to talk to him. And so, I'm trying to get him to engage, and he would take this little blue tunnel when I would try to talk to him. Every time he would take a little blue tunnel and put it over the top of his head. And I'm like, oh my goodness, now what? What am I supposed to do? And then the minute I would stop talking, he'd take the tunnel, throw it off, and go off and do his own thing, right? And
Okay.
so one day I realized, I was like, you know what? I don't blame you, baby. I don't blame you for not wanting to talk to me. Like, you don't know me, you don't like me, you don't like to engage, right? And so I was like, but I wonder what it's like in this little blue tunnel. So I put it over my own head, and I looked around, and I was like, oh, I can see why you like it in here. It's blue, can't hear me very well. I can't hear you, all these different things, right? And when I pulled the tunnel down for the first time ever, he was looking at me. He was looking at me directly in the eyes, like almost like a what are you doing, lady? And
Okay.
so, and then I kind of just followed his lead. I was like, well, I said, nope. I said, if I don't get to look at you, you don't get to look at me. And I pulled the tunnel up, and I pulled it back down, and we started to play this like strange little game of peekaboo. But I started to get faint smile. He was very blunt affect, but faint smiles in his eyes, like, and it became kind of a fun thing. And from there, we were able to get him engaged because I took an interest in what he was interested in first. I
Yes.
was able to get him engaged, and then he started to follow some of what I did. It kind of it led to him eventually just kind of, he would be playing with a toy, and then he'd just pick it up and throw it at me and be like, "Now you play with this toy, right?"
Yes.
And then it kind of led up to now we're able to interact, and then I pick the game and he picks the game, and then he became verbal, and all these things happened. And it was a very interesting process for me because I learned a lot through him. I learned that, one, if I was having a bad day internally, because we're all human and we have bad days, no matter how professionally I presented, no matter how softly I spoke, none of that mattered. He would act according to what was happening with me internally. So that was something that I picked up on right away because I was like, oh, you're really sensitive, like I am. So I understood it quickly because I'm like, oh, I said, you can see straight through me, right? The same way I was. You can see
Yes.
straight through me. And he taught me during that time. I didn't realize it at that time, but I carried that with me because I figured out I have to figure out how to find my zen. I have to find my peace space, or I will not get good results with this kid. So that actually leads to the first concept in my philosophy and the methodology piece, the 4-step process that it takes to have success with hypersensitive kids. The first is to find your calm. If you're not able to find your, and I say find it on purpose because it's not like we don't ever have it. It's just we have to locate how to get
Yes.
there sometimes in very difficult moments. And so there's a whole process that I send parents through, teaching them the importance of, first and foremost, of finding their calm. Because if you do not, then these very sensitive kids, the hypersensitive kids, they will tune into the feeling energy of you, and they will become reactive to that. So it doesn't matter how logical you try to be. It doesn't matter how softly you speak. It doesn't, none of those things matter at all. What matters is they attach to what's happening with you on the inside. So you have to find a peace space in order to help them to de-escalate. And so I go through the process of teaching parents how to do that. And all of the 4 steps are all wrapped up in one another. So as I move along the 4 steps, you'll be able to identify that this second step also helps you to find your calm. And then the third step also helps you to understand, the second step and find your calm. But now that leads me to second step. The second step is to understand the real truth, or what I love to call the honest truth. Oftentimes we are impacted by far more than what's happening there in that moment. And when you're dealing with especially hypersensitive kids, they can be very triggering for many parents
Yes,
because
yes,
they tend to be on their own agenda, which makes it seem as if they don't care about anybody but themselves, right? And they tend to be very concrete thinkers, which makes them very difficult to reason with. And, so there are all these elements that if you don't work towards finding the real truth about what's happening in the moment, as a parent, you will personalize what that child is doing first and foremost, which is always the worst thing to do.
yes,
So when your child does not want to clean their room, they don't want to do their chores, the parent is like, oh, you don't appreciate anything. All you care about is yourself,
yes,
and all these things that to a concrete thinking kid, they're like, you don't know what you're talking about, because what the parents are saying has nothing to do with what's going on with the kid. They don't want to clean their rooms because they don't like to clean their rooms. So,
okay,
and so when you're dealing in the real truth, then you can really start to have a better impact with the concrete thinking on their own agenda kid. Because then you're not making about you and how upsetting they are to you. And when you're dealing with a kid who is very, very self-oriented, very self-focused, you're not going to have any breakthrough by telling them how they're making you feel.
mm,
Okay, you'll have more breakthrough by telling them how these things that they're doing are going to impact them negatively. So, and this is like a little shift, understanding the real truth. There's a lot of components to it. I won't get to, but a lot of components to it. But another piece to it is understanding the real truth about what's going on with you or them. I love to give the HALT check-in: hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. It's a part of the 12-step program, but it works very well for relationships because when
okay,
you check in and you think, okay, when I'm highly reactive in a situation, sometimes it might be because I didn't have breakfast this morning, or it might be because they didn't have their snack at lunchtime. It could easily be a hangry moment. So hungry might be in there. It could be that you had a bad day at work, so you were already set to be upset. But whatever's happening in that moment, if you are highly emotionally reactive, it has more to do with other aspects than it does to what's happening right there in that moment. And so when you start to explore that, then it helps you a lot. And then the lonely, and of course, we all know if we're overtired, we don't do well. So
yes,
nobody does well if they don't get enough rest. So if you're doing that check in for self and others, then you can give, instead of making the other person the bad guy or the other person an offense to you, it could be they're struggling in this area that you might be able to have a solution to. So it gives you a little bit of empowerment. And so understanding the real truth is step 2. And of course, understanding the real truth helps you to calm down a little more, right? Helps you
yes,
find the calm.
exactly.
And then step 3 is react according to your truest intentions. And this one is like, this is my sticker right here. So when you're reacting according to your truest intentions, then you will have peace in your space. Why? Because that is ultimately what we all want. We all want connection and we all want peace. It may not always seem like it, okay, in a moment, because people self-sabotage, they work against themselves all the time. But
Yes,
we are born innately needing to connect with others. There. I don't know if you've heard of the old, orphanage studies from a long time ago, where the babies they had the newborns there, and those who were fed by like machines, they would literally get the nurturing that they needed as far as sustenance, food, but because they lacked that connectivity with other human beings, they would just turn over and die. Like
yes,
it's that deep with us, that need to connect. Okay. And so if we are reacting according to our truest intentions, especially when you're dealing with your child, then most of the time, most parents, and I would venture to say all who are not making mistakes, right? They want their children to feel loved, cared for, safe, right? High self-esteem. We want all these wonderful things for our kids. But what we reflect oftentimes are very little of those things. So we're yelling, we're reflecting disappointment and frustration and,
Yes.
you know, and all these things that we don't, it's not our intention nor our goal to crush our kids' self-esteem. And so it becomes very important to learn how to react according to what we truly intend, right? And this leads us back into understanding the real truth, though. Understanding the real truth means that if our child is acting out and we know that they can behave better, right? Then our upset comes from the fact that they're not behaving in that better way that we see them being able to behave in. So if we know these things, we need to speak to the lovely child that we know exists in there, as opposed to the little one that we feel is the tyrant, right? So because
Right.
whichever one we speak to is the one we'll get more of.
Yes.
So,
That is absolutely true.
and so if you're reacting according to your truest intentions, then you're letting your child know, hey, I'm on your side. I want what's best for you. I want you to be happy too. So when you're addressing things like, say, not wanting to wash the dishes, for the child when that's their responsibility or something like that, then you use what I love to call the power talk formula. I learned this in a little game that I used to play, power talk formula, and you teach them, hey, when you don't wash the dishes, it causes me to feel like there are things that are getting in the way that are disrupting your ability to be helpful to the household, right? And I know that's not your intention, right? Because what that means is now I'm going to start taking things away and out of the way, right? I know that's not your intention. So I just need you to get the dishes done so that we can both have you happy in getting to this activity that you like, right? So
Right.
then you're teaching them, hey, I'm on your side. And here, this behavior right here is preventing you from getting to the thing that you want more often, right?
Yes.
Or getting you more of what you want less often, which is me upset or me yelling or me nagging or, all those things. You can even say things like, oh my goodness, you hate when I nag. But when you do this right here, oh my goodness, all I want to do is talk about it, right? And that's the last thing either of us want. So please just take care of this thing first so we don't have to hear me talk about it, right?
Right.
So
So
so then
basically it is having a mutual understanding, expressing your truest self. This is
yes,
yes.
yes, the real you. Because and then the reason, and it all gets back to everything else. So you find you're calmer, you have more peace when you're representing who you truly want to represent. When you feel like you're a nice parent, you love your child, you want to love on your child, you're a caring person, it makes you feel terrible to find yourself yelling, to find yourself constantly frustrated, to find yourself upset all the time. And so we want to move parents into a place where they can represent truly who they mean to represent. Because when they're misrepresenting themselves, then they have to blame someone for it. And it's almost like, I can't be the nice person that I want to be because, see, you did this, right? And
Yes.
so, that's really where all the upset is coming from, is we're so against ourselves. And so if we can teach parents how to get back to themselves, that'll help them better find their calm, which will help their emotion soaking. Their children who tend
Yes.
to sponge off of other people's negative energies, right? And then react
Right.
times 100. It
Right.
helps them to de-escalate, and then you get more cooperation, and you get this sense of community, a sense of closeness and connection in your home.
Amazing. That's
And then
that's
the
I think the
fourth step,
perfect way. Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
and then the fourth step, because the fourth step is to maintain that longevity that we want. We want to continue to have these wonderful things happening. And so I call the fourth step my three R's. You have to recognize the small step improvements that are being made. Because when you change your behavior or you change your way of responding and behaviors start to change and shift, you have to recognize when that's happening in increments, because if you miss it, then you will reinforce the wrong things, or you will fail to reinforce the right things, so you won't get more of them. So you recognize small difference. So if you have a child who would melt down and cry and scream for 1 hour before, and they cut that down to 30 minutes, right?
Yes.
Then you want to recognize that small step. Know that you still had a really tough time, baby, but guess what? You used to cry for an hour before and you moved it to 30 minutes. How were you able to make that such a big improvement? I'm so proud of you. How are you able to regulate, right? And and this will encourage, first of all, you yourself, because you'll see the positive change. It'll give you more hope. It encourages the child because then their behavior is not so all on that side of horrible. It shows that it can improve, which causes more improvement, right? So you recognize, you reinforce, and you repeat. It's like the rinse and repeat. All 4 steps. You just keep vacillating between the 4. And what you'll find is a calmer, hypersensitive child, a calmer and more peaceful home, and one with a sense of cooperation.
Lovely, lovely, Lafaya. That was really amazing to know that 4 steps. And yeah, I think being our truest self, and what you said, which I really like, was they are responding to the energies what you are within. It's not the verbal thing, and how you just put it to practice your 4 way. I mean, that's really amazing how you're helping parents out. And so in this way they are able to manage their emotions and everything. Amazing. So Lafaya, before we wind up, do you have any other tips for our parents out here, who, or parents, or people who are dealing with such kind of family members who are emotionally overactive?
Now, what I want to tell everyone is the concepts that I'm sharing. I know that they're not commonly taught. They are maybe in little pieces here and there, but they haven't been brought together in this way. And I would say that once you start to learn the Lafaya way, it requires repetition of hearing and learning. And once you, because it makes sense to you when you hear it, it's like, oh my goodness, that makes so much sense. Why didn't I think of that, right? And so what I would say is make sure that you for sure that you invest in my 3 books because they're going to help you out immensely. The parents that I've met with for years, they tell me, "Oh my goodness, this is so great." And it's just like talking to you. We're getting all the years of stuff that we got from you in just 3 books. And
Wow.
then and my newer parents, the new parents that I see now, I see results a lot more quickly. So it doesn't take as much time because they have something, and these are written in a way they're for busy people, busy, tired parents. It takes
Yes.
about maybe 2 hours. Each book is they're what I call mini books. They're 4 by 6 books. They're easy read. They're fun to read. They're full of tangible tips, and it gets a little bit deeper into understanding how other things impact, like understanding the truth, understanding how your past impacts how you're triggered now. It
Exactly.
really digs in. And it gives specific tips for to deal with really tough moments, embarrassing moments, upsetting moments,
Yes.
and all of that. So definitely do that. I'm offering right now through the end of this year a free group for parents, Q&A the Lafaya Way. You can find it on my Facebook page it's at Lafaya Way, and I think everything will be written out. But at
Yes.
Lafaya
Yes.
Way, you can find me on Facebook, and I am giving so much content. I'm in love with the idea of sharing all of this and just bringing peace into our homes, because if we bring peace into our homes, we'll bring peace into our future world. Okay, which
Yes.
we need that sorely. And
Definitely.
so
We definitely need that, Lafaya. We definitely need it.
yeah,
Yes.
and I also have a YouTube channel at Lafaya Way. I'm making everything so easy for you. YouTube channel at Lafaya Way, so much content for you, dealing with all kinds of parent issues. I'm taking parent questions. Send them to me. I want to answer them for you. And so
Lovely.
just locate it, and
How
or
did
go
we
to my
get?
website. You can go to my website to get access to any of my information, and that's lafayaway.com. So you can find everything you need right there.
Wow,
So
lovely. How did we get so lucky to have all your content ready to us? So, viewers, please go and take away whatever you would like to understand, know from her. And thank you, viewers, for watching us, sharing your time with us. Thank you, Lafaya, for being over here and all that golden nuggets which you have shared with our viewers and through your books, through your channel, whatever you're doing, contributing your own way into this world. Thank you so much for everything. And viewers, you can join my Facebook group if you want to stay connected virtually, where I will be going deeper about each and every speaker which is there on this series. So my Facebook group is Body Mind Rewind. And till then, stay safe, stay healthy, love little more. Bye. See you all soon.